We go to Mr. Ted Lieu, Colonel Ted Lieu of California.
And thank you to the panel for being here. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to South Korea on a bipartisan delegation with Chairman Royce and others, where we received threats assessments on North Korea. We visited DMZ and met with our warfighters. And one of the issues that struck me is the continuing advances in ballistic missile technology by North Korea. And I do believe sooner rather than later, they will develop an ICBM that can strike Alaska or Hawaii or California. And as you know, the THAAD missile system hits missiles on their way down. So a THAAD missile system in South Korea wouldn't actually do anything to protect the U.S. homeland from such a launch. What is your view on airborne lasers? So we used to, as you know, have an airborne laser program. It was quite expensive at the time, but it did meet its requirements. It was scrapped because it was too expensive. And Secretary Gates, when he said why he didn't want it, is you had to get, for example, in Iran, within its own airspace to shoot down these sites. North Korea is geographically quite different. It is much smaller. You could, in fact, have airborne assets that could get quite close. And with new advancements in laser technology, is this something we should be investing more in? And I want to get your thoughts. Anyone can answer.
I'm going to take the question, sir, as an opportunity to say that we ought to be careful about what we're advocating when we advocate for THAAD. I think we ought to advocate for THAAD, but we ought to understand the limits of that system within the layered defense that we are deploying in Northeast Asia. That if you take THAAD and the Aegis system and the terminal phase Patriot 3, we have systems there that really are not going to protect us against the kind of missile, or not with any kind of confidence anyway, that we're talking about and that most people are concerned about right now, namely a missile of ICBM range and reentry vehicles velocities. The geography, the orientation of the launch, none of this makes much sense. You raised particularly the airborne laser, and I think the appeal of that, people who think about ballistic missile defense, is that that's a launch phase intercept. And if you had a launch phase intercept, one doesn't worry about decoys, doesn't worry about numbers of missiles to deal with in a radar at one particular time. It has many advantages. My appreciation of that issue is that there are enormous numbers of technical challenges of keeping a laser on target, of being, as you say, geographically proximate to the launch, and these are not trivial. I have really no idea whether we have looked hard at the application for North Korea, but I wouldn't see it as a near-term solution in any event.
Well, the reason I ask is they don't either have a near-term ICBM that can strike the U.S. homeland, but it seems like we ought to invest in defenses that potentially could stop one of those launches, because it's not clear to me that there's any other way to stop their advancements in ICBM technology.
I think if we put our energy into ballistic missile defense to deal with the North Korea case, the North Korea case will advance much more quickly. The offense-defense competition much favors North Korea over us. And this is not an argument against ballistic missile defense. I think our continuing efforts here are worthwhile, but I think we need to think this through without depending upon an ability to shoot down a North Korean ICBM.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that, or do you agree with that testimony?
I think Ambassador Gallucci's response really covered what I wanted to say. The only thing I would add is that this is where the previous discussion about a freeze and a cap become important, because that would at least become a platform from which you could start to retard the growth of the program. So I don't have any problem with a freeze or a cap. The problem that I have is paying for it, because in the past two agreements we paid for it, and we paid nearly $500 million if you put the two agreements together to freeze their program, which they eventually broke. And for some reason, I just don't think this White House is going to be willing to pay for a freeze.
Thank you. Let me just give you one more concluding thought. I agree that there's technological challenges. I think there is also some usefulness if there's a threat that the U.S. could do this. if there's a system that might work, that even gives us more leverage than we do now, which is we don't really have a system. And with that, thank you for being here.